I think that I've been grinning a lot these last weeks, at least inside, at the thought merely of introducing Jenny Allen to you. I'm grinning now, for I am truly pleased to talk about Jenny, who is not only hilarious, the funniest person I know, we all know that the great Andy Borowitz said, but also a special and very smart soul. Curious, truth-telling, unpredictable, and multi-talented. I've known Jenny a long time, back to her early post-Yale days, when she was a reporter for Life magazine, before she began to write articles and essays for a whole spate of magazines, and discovered the joys of performing improv and then stand-up in corners around New York. Before she got sick and then got better, and wrote a play of that name, as was just mentioned, about that experience, which is still staged all over the country. I remember a time when I think, looking back, that Jenny was on the brink of her reputation as one of the most compelling humorists around. When she was invited to read with a small group of talented writers at the New York Public Library. And there were New Yorker people in the crowd. And the next thing you knew, she was writing regularly for Shouts and Murmur in that magazine. I remember that she talked then about her bouts, her regular 4 a.m. bouts of insomnia, and what she thought about then. And then she lapsed into talking about all her friends around the city and wondering what they were thinking about at that very same moment, and their own nocturnal craziness. It was memorable, obviously. This is how long ago?
I think it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was 10 years ago, too.
A little more, maybe.
Anyway, I love Jenny's work on the page, but she is also a fine actress and a natural performer. So that today, as we welcome her first book of humor, we get to see that splendid combination of hers in action. Lucky you, lucky us. Jenny.
That's so sweet. Thank you, Betsy. She's my dear friend. You couldn't tell. Oh, so sweet. Well, I thought, thank you so much for coming in this beautiful beach day. No. I thought, hi, Leah. I thought maybe Betsy said it would be okay, and the organizer said if I read a couple of pieces, because sometimes that's a little funnier than talking about being funny. That is than me telling you why I think I'm so very, very funny. And I thought I would read a couple of ones I don't read out loud. I haven't read that loud that much, because everybody's heard me, I feel, read between the radio and here and there in people's living rooms. I'm awake, which I do love reading, which is that piece that Betsy talked about, which is basically a stream of conscience. Oh boy. Yes, that what you said, and it's very fun to read, but it's a little long maybe. So this one is called Me Flirting. And no, I'm good here. I think. Thank you. A lot of these pieces are about a woman of a certain age, and sometimes she's me, but sometimes she's more often a kind of slightly more frantic version of me, or sort of somebody who's taken a little left turn into crazy town, or just a little more, just a little notch higher up than me. I mean, little more nervous. This is called Me Flirting. Is this seat taken? Actually, I better sit over here on your other side, my good ear side. I'll hear you much better, especially when the band starts up. I should probably get a hearing aid, but I'm saving up for dental implants. I wasn't going to bother because the rotten tooth is like way in the back here. Can you see it? Way back there? But then I thought about the teeth on either side of it collapsing into each other and my mouth caving in, and I decided to just go for it, you know? Is that a Housatonic? A gin and tonic? Sometimes the wrong sounds come out of my mouth now. The other day I said fertilizer, but it came out dishwasher. Oh. Anyway, that looks delicious. I wish I could have one. But carbonated beverages started to make me so gassy. And Brussels sprouts, just forget about it. Oh, how do you know the bride and groom? Really? I can't believe they have an investment advisor at their age. My goodness, they look 12. They must be loaded. Good for them. Maybe they'll loan me some money. Just kidding. You never know, though, right? People our age are always coming down with horrible diseases. You could get colorectal cancer at any moment and need cash ASAP. By the way, you wouldn't happen to know how the whole reverse mortgage thing works, would you? Don't look now, but I think that's Seth Rogen, 2 tables over. Unless it's Scott Rudin, or Seth Meyers, or Seth Rudetsky. I don't even know who that is. Honestly, I don't know who any of the celebrities are anymore. I don't even care. I still can't believe the Beatles broke up. It just makes me very, very sad. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I'll stop in a minute. Or not. You know, these crying jags are kind of unpredictable. That's menopause for you. And menopause is such a funny word because it's not a pause at all. It's more like forever. The crying, the hot flashes, you name it. All the really old ladies I know tell me they never end. Meno-eternity, more like it. Also, don't you think menopause sounds like something you'd buy on late night TV? Like, men-o-pause. Push a button and the men in your life will stop trying to explain football to you for 5 whole minutes. I hope that doesn't hurt your feelings. Oh, speaking of old ladies, I hope I don't turn into one of those old ladies who's always coughing because she has a piece of peanut stuck in her throat. You know those old ladies, you go out to lunch with them or to the movies and they spend the whole time coughing and driving everyone around them crazy. And when you suggest they drink some water, they refuse. No, that's not going to help, they say. As if it's a bad idea when it's the only idea. It's the only cure. You know what? I like Yoko now. I never thought that would happen. I like it that she's an old lady and still making art. Isn't it funny how life softens your edges? Or maybe life softens some of your edges but hardens you in other ways. Like, I can list the names of every person I don't want at my funeral. There are people I'd just like to say a final fuck you to, you know? Isn't it strange? You start out life counting the people you don't want at your birthday party, and you end it counting the ones you don't want at your funeral. Maybe we don't learn anything in between. Maybe we just go through life gathering grudges, and then we die. Oh, God, isn't that so sad? I'm sorry, here I go again. What a crybaby. Okay, I'm done. Look, here comes the salad course. I hope it doesn't have any raw onions in it. Acid reflux alert, acid reflux alert. It's good I brought a lot of Tums. I love Tums, don't you? I don't know why the person who invented them didn't get a Nobel Prize. I really don't. No, that's fine. Go check your messages. I'll save your place. I feel we're making a real connection here. So silly. So silly. Anyway, that's not exactly me. But I have felt like that from time to time. So I could read another one, or we could talk, and then I could read one before we end. Should we do that? I don't really have a.
What will we talk about?
Well, I mean, I'd love to. I could do this all day, as you can. I mean, I just love doing it. But
You're
should we
so
read
good.
another one?
And you can stop and then talk if you want to and go right back
Betsy's
and
heard
read.
me read everything I ever
No.
wrote, I think.
I had never heard Elmer Fudd.
You
Have any of
haven't heard it?
I've heard it now. but
Okay,
I
twist
hadn't
my
heard
arm.
Elmer
I'll read
Fudd.
it. Shall I read?
Elmer Fudd? Yeah.
Shall I read the Elmer Fudd one? This is
Unless has everybody heard Elmer Fudd, which you could hear again? Okay.
well.
Elmer Fudd.
Thank you, everybody. That's very. This is called talk therapy. But actually, it's spelled TAWK THEWAPY. And we had a little I had an endless back and forth with the wonderful proofreader at This is Sarah Crichton, my editor and publisher here of Sarah Crichton Books. And parenthetically, I was telling her how amazing the proofreaders and copy editors were at Farrar Straus, where Sarah's imprint is. And I don't even think we talked about how many passes we had to make at this, because no matter how hard we worked, there was always some word, there was always some R that was left in there that Elmer wouldn't have been able to say. There were like 16, there may even be one left in there. If there is, it's my fault. But Sarah was saying, the difference between, self-printing, printing, the whole kind of industry there is now around printing your own books. What they don't take into account is these people who make your writing look good. And they have to be on salary. You can't just job it out, right? Thank God for this, because I think we got rid of most of the R's. The following interview with Mr. Elmer Fudd, patient 56778, was conducted by Dr. Marvin Seligman, senior staff psychiatrist at Acme Psychiatric Hospital. Patient Fudd was found wandering in a forest, disoriented and in a state of mental and physical exhaustion. He carried a shotgun whose barrel had been tied into a large bow, like that on top of a gift. He said that a crazy wabbit had done this, and that this act was the wastois. The troop of Boy Scouts who discovered the sportsman brought him to Acme, where he was admitted earlier today. Mr. Fudd told the admitting nurse that he was uncertain how many days he had been in the woods, though he said he is accustomed to spending the entirety of hunting season there. Mr. Fudd is middle-aged, short, bald, and somewhat overweight with a disproportionately large head. He presented as generally despondent and morose, though sudden bursts of rage and thin-skinned hypersensitivity suggest underlying mood lability. Below are the transcribed notes of his entrance interview. Doctor, why don't you tell me a bit about yourself, Mr. Fudd? I'm a hunter. I hunt wabbits. One wabbit. Do you enjoy your work? Not really. And why is that, do you think? Because the wabbit always outwits me. Outwits you? Oh, you're horrible. You're a meanie. I got a gun, It may be tied into a bow, but I can still smack you right on the head with it. Forgive me, I wasn't sure. Never mind. He outwits you. Please continue. He's a twixter. Very clever. Very devious. Sometimes when I have my gun right in his face, he just takes out a big carrot and chews on it, as we waxed and nonchalant as you please. This gets me all distracted, and I forget I'm supposed to be hunting him, especially when he asks me if I've seen any rabbits around, and if he can help me hunt for them. Sometimes he fools me by dressing up as a ballerina, or Mae West, and kissing me on the lips, which I hate. Then he sticks his stupid carrot right into the end of my gun, and when I pull the trigger, all the buckshot explodes right in my face. And he just laughs and laughs. May I ask you how long you have been hunting this particular rabbit? Ever since I can remember. My whole life. And yet you continue to pursue him. My motto is, if at first you don't succeed, try again. Mr. Fudd, do the words perseverating and perseverance have any significance for you? Both of them have two R's I can't pronounce. True, but I'm thinking about the meanings of the words. In perseverating, we practice a kind of repetition compulsion, an obsessive need to repeat over and over, an action that is futile. While in persevering, we attempt to attain a realistic and healthy goal. I must say to you, difficult as it may be to hear, that I feel it is extremely unlikely that you will ever catch this rabbit. Who asked you anyway, Mr. Smarty Pants? But perhaps, just perhaps, you don't want to catch him. Perhaps you have picked a rabbit who is uncatchable, at least by you. That's crazy! Why would I do that? Perhaps that is what you have come to Acme here to Acme to work through. Let me ask you this. How do you think you'd feel if you ever caught this rabbit? Oh, many times I think I have caught him. And he seems to be dying in my arms.
He says, I can't see, everything turning black.
And how does that feel?
Truthfully, terrible. These feelings of great shame wash over me. And I say, I killed a poor little gray fuzzy rabbit. And then I cry and cry.
In other words, as soon as you think you have slain your adversary, the very goal you have been struggling so mightily to achieve, you are overwhelmed with feelings of remorse.
Pretty much.
Why is that, do you think?
How should I know? But I always get mad right away again because he jumps up and calls me a big dope or turns his long ears into propellers and flies away.
And the whole cycle begins anew.
Well, what the heck am I supposed to do? Take up another line of work at this late stage?
Change can certainly be a scary prospect, Mr. Fudd. But what I'm hearing is that you don't even enjoy the successful outcome of your hunt, as ephemeral as it may be. Perhaps being a hunter isn't really who you are. Wouldn't it be nice to explore what a more authentic, happier self might be for you?
No! I don't want to be fixed. I don't want to be cured. I'll lose what makes me special. My edge, my drive, my Elmer Fuddness. I'll be just another schmuck with a speech impediment.
Not at all. You will still be Elmer Fudd. But you will be a much less miserable Elmer Fudd. A more fully dimensional Elmer Fudd.
Where's the adrenaline rush? Where's the drama?
Well, those intense but fleeting feelings, those highs and lows, would be replaced by the deeper, more fulfilling pleasures of marriage and family, of connection and community and love.
Will I have to go to PTA meetings? Will I have to assemble complicated toys at midnight on Christmas Eve from instructions that have been translated into mangled English from Japanese?
Probably.
Will I have to pretend to be interested when my wife talks about probiotics? Will she have a bunch of relatives whose name I can never remember? Will I have to go shopping at Macy's on Black Friday with the rest of humanity?
Well, those things are a part of ordinary life.
Can I say something?
Of course.
Yeah! It sounds excruciating!
Do you mean boring?
Well, to say the least.
It's not as boring as you think. There are moments of great excitement, great stimulation.
What moments?
Well, there's sex, for one thing.
I don't even know what that is.
Well, then you're in for a treat, Mr. Fudd.
Is it like hunting that crazy rabbit?
I'm sorry, I'm not following you.
Is it humiliating and frustrating? And afterwards, do you feel the pain of regret?
Not usually. Only sometimes.
Really?
Yes.
That's good enough for me. I'm in.
Mr. Fudd seemed greatly cheered by this prospect, breaking into sudden staccato laughter. At this moment, this interviewer experienced a sudden sinking realization. Mr. Fudd is hardwired to experience pain as pleasure. It is his nature, nothing less. Perhaps earlier in his career, this interviewer would have recommended to Mr. Fudd an extended course of psychotherapy. But experience has shown that for patients such as Mr. Fudd, all the talk therapy in the world will not alter their behavior. It is recommended that a bed at Acme be reserved annually for Mr. Fudd, so that he may spend several days recovering from the rigors of the useless pursuit of his foe. He should then be released, back to the forest, back to the rabbit who torments him so successfully. Some things you just can't fix.
It gets better and better. I keep waiting for you to slip with Elmer and every rabbit and ladybug.
Yes, Elmer Fudd he's fun. He's such a complicated fellow.
How recent is Elmer?
Oh, I think I just
Remember.
wrote this last year, and I did hear Sarah laughing out on the lawn when she read it. I thought, oh, goody, it can go in the book, because I can't really tell if these things are actually funny until somebody else. I mean, I think Some of them are funny, but I really can't tell.
And then some people just go,
Or they say, that's
but
funny.
I don't. I usually do not laugh loudly, out loud.
Oh, I've had...
And I do it.
Yeah,
I do. It's just you gotta
you
let it out.
Yeah, it is nice to hear somebody laugh when they read something. And that is very encouraging to me if I hear them laugh out loud. Very encouraging to me. I think, well, then this one makes it. I mean, I usually, when I try to write something funny, and I'm sure a lot of people here are tried to write something funny, and you have the same experience where you think, oh, this is going to be so great. Well, this is a really good idea. And then it peters out, but you don't really know if that's going to happen. And it's, everything seems like a funny idea. Some of them just don't sustain themselves.
But you're asked this all the time, I know. But the difference between spoken humor
Yeah, I love
and humor
that.
on the page, of course, there is a distinctive difference.
There is
but
a difference.
Did you learn? I mean, do you now, by this point, since you're doing both, and I believe it started with improv, didn't
Yes,
it?
I started by talking. I started with doing like monologues, standing up monologues, not scripted rather than improvised. But mostly. But a lot of these pieces lend themselves to being read out loud because they are. I can hear the person or pig in this case talking in my head, or some woman's voice or some person's voice, and they're very. There is a difference, but unless you can hear it, because so much of humor, I mean, everybody knows this is about rhythm and timing, and there's a lot the same. Some things are different, but some things are if you can't if the rhythm isn't there, it just doesn't work.
I think certainly most. I don't know whether it's most. I mean, I always feel a need for the rhythm or sort of resisting a rhythm that doesn't work. The sentence just doesn't go
Yes.
long enough when I feel like in my head it's going on. But then if I were to say it out loud, it might be just fine. So it must
that's
be.
true. Well, I know when I've done things for the Moth, there is I think I've told Betsy we've talked about this before, that if I write something that I think is will sound fine when it's spoken, and I work with the editor, the producer at the Moth, who's really my editor for those things. It's incredible how much they have to change before they can, how much air you have to let in before they can be spoken comfortably as a story, and that you do have to get rid of all the pretty metaphors and any digressions, and there is a propulsion they have to have when you do a spoken story, that you are the narrative can never stop to make a little byway visit to some nice little turn of phrase that you have, and written work is a little more generous than that.
It's funny because there is ego involved in both, but different kinds of ego. I mean, because you can find yourself really showing off in prose on the page.
Yes, you can't show off,
and you can't show off.
You
the
cannot
same
show
way,
off.
and
I know they've yes, a couple of these pieces. A piece about wearing a wig. I did it in another version for the Moth, and it had to be way. Yes, they took out all the little
just the
pretty
right, the
stuff.
decoration.
All the decoration. Yeah, and you have to be agreeable about that. It's
letting air in is a
they
great
did.
phrase
They
for
had
it,
to,
which is of
lots
course
of air.
relaxed and easy. And
Yeah, we had to do that.
Sarah, do you have a particular favorite? You must have read a lot of wonderful pieces that will come out in volume 2.
They're all my favorite.
We didn't run all of them. There was one I loved. Sarah is very tactful and kind, and there was one I'd written about there was a flap in the news several years ago about it was about women in the military and how it was a horrible statistic that about women not advancing in the military, even though all of their peer reviews and reviews by their uppers had been, even when they were way more qualified than the men, they never advanced as high as the men in the military. It was not a sort of 50%, it was like 100% of the time, even though they were more competent. And I wrote something about it, and Sarah was very kind, and she said, maybe you should need to do more. Then she finally said, it just needs to be funnier. And I couldn't really make it funnier, but sorry.
No,
Just
but it is an interesting point. The difference between the pieces that work for the Moth or for spoken word and on the page, there are two separate things. And for a book like this, in a series where Jenny so brilliantly reads them, you have to strike this very interesting balance, because you do, if you're going to read on the page, the metaphors have to be more interesting, the language has to be more surprising, things have to like hit your eye and make you laugh, as opposed to hit your ears and make you laugh. And so there's a very sort of interesting writing and then editing process where you're trying to bridge these different things, and they run on parallel tracks, and you have to get them really, really close, but they're different.
yeah, the Moth things had to be reworked to be more written, more of it. Yeah.
It is a wonderful time for telling stories. And I do wonder if you feel, and also those of you who have followed stand-up comedy, or, I mean, even the comedians, the great number of comedians on the tube now and podcasts, et cetera, if it has changed or if it has just grown.
Oh, I think it's grown. I think it's really grown, don't you? I mean, there's just a lot more, because we have some more. Yes, and we have lots more access. And I mean, the Moth isn't the only storytelling group out there. There's all these other groups, and documentary films, and 8,000 comics on various TV shows. Yes, I think it's grown. I think it's a really wonderful heyday. A lot of them are on too late for me to see, sort of, and I can't ever get. People tell me about them, and then I watch them on YouTube. But
I do remember you in shady corners of small little bars down the East Village, and
yes, we did that
with a whole assortment of different types.
Yeah, we did
a suburban, more suburban jokes and
Right.
really heavy metal
Yes.
equivalent of jokes.
Yes.
And
We had a group of journalists, though, too. Remember Walter Shapiro and Matt Cooper and some other
number of whom have
journalists who
you
would.
also see in bigger arenas.
Yes, yes. We would go in clubs around New York. Yeah, I didn't do political stuff for the most part, but they did. It was very fun. Really fun.
Do you guys have any questions, or do you want to read? I don't know. How are we on time, et cetera?
About, 12 more minutes, so
Read the one about the piranhas, or what is it? The little. Which one? Oh, my gratitudes. Oh, I loved it because I'm so grateful. May I?
This was in the New Yorker, right? Wasn't it?
This was. No, my editor has been holding on to this for 2 years. Would you please call her and tell her to run it and send me a check? I would so love that. Her last email said, I too would love to see this in the magazine. And yours truly, your editor. That is not a commitment. I too would love to. I don't really know what to. Oh no, maybe this one did run. This one ran online. That's right. It's another one that, as you can see, I'm a little bitter about. Hold on a second. This is my gratitudes. Excuse me. I have them all marked. That's why I have to go through every page. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So. I actually do my gratitudes, but then I like to make fun of myself. My gratitudes. Sometimes Sometimes I forget to do my gratitudes, and that is just dumb. Because when we don't take the time each day to count our gratitudes, our ingratitudes just rush right in and take over, and then we are off to the fucking races, are we not? Life seems to hold nothing but the many unfortunate, heartbreaking, humiliating things that happen to us, sometimes in a single day. Our existence merely an accretion of thousands upon thousands of those days. Our only prospect in old age in which we are sure to get stranger and more ill-tempered by the minute, until we finally die alone and in diapers, leaving all of our money to two cats named Bosco and Archduke Vladimir von Fürstenkitty. What I'm saying here is that we can always find things to be thankful for, even the unluckiest among us. And it only takes a few minutes each day. For example, some of your gratitudes can be for things that have happened to you that are bad, but that you can repurpose into positives. For example, being a permalancer for a company that would rather blow itself up than hire you as a real employee. You're barely making a living wage, that's true, and you get no health benefits. On the upside, the gratitude side. You get to steal pretty much all the office supplies you want, and you're not invited to the interminable Friday morning staff meetings where Ron takes up an hour bloviating about his dumb ideas. Another example, no one except horny for you and Hillbilly Goat has favorited you on Match.com in like a month. Sad in a way, but turn it around. If you did meet and marry someone, he'd probably turn out to be one of those men with a whole other family in another state. And you'd be certain to find this out in some especially sickening way. You'd see a photo in the paper of a Little League team that won the regionals and think, my, that coach looks just like my Steve. Or you'd be taking your kids on a little road trip, and you'd run into your husband and his other wife and their 4 children at a Denny's, laughing and eating pancakes. You can also be grateful that the bad things that have happened to you at least haven't happened to you again today. Like, today I'm grateful that a ticket taker at the movie theater didn't ask me if I was a senior citizen. And then when I said no, say, really? 'Cause that was last week. That did happen to me. And once you put your gratitude's thinking cap on, they just come at you one after the other, like shiny presents on Christmas Day. Take something as simple as your name. Maybe you don't like your name. Maybe it's bland or hard to pronounce. But at least you didn't have to grow up with a last name like Butts or Breasted or Hyman or Crotchley. Or a first name that rhymes with vagina, such as Janina or Regina. Although I think if I were named Regina, I would definitely just lie and tell everyone it was pronounced Regina. Speaking of names, I'm grateful every day not to know that I'm a distant and yet blood relative of Herman Goering, Kool-Aid cultist Jim Jones, Tiny Tim, or Rudolph Giuliani. This is because I never go on Ancestry.com. And I urge you to do the same. Going on Ancestry.com is just borrowing trouble, and who needs trouble when we are gathering our gratitudes? Apropos my health, I am grateful that I don't suffer from horrific cluster headaches, so excruciating they can drive their sufferers to suicide, and instead just have tension headaches, even if I have them like all day. And though I also suffer from a variety of other digestive, don't ask, ailments, a big shout out of health gratitude for not sending me with a minor cut to the emergency room, there to contract a flesh-eating bacteria from the germ-soaked hospital air, requiring the grafting of skin from my buttocks onto my face. Merci, gratitude gods, for that. Okay. I wish I had a bigger apartment. Who doesn't? But at least Robert Durst hasn't moved in across the hall and sought out my friendship by knocking on my door and asking to borrow one of my frocks, right? Also, since my apartment is a walk-up, there is no chance I will get stuck in a broken elevator for 7 hours with a jonesing crystal meth addict and his increasingly peckish dog, a Rottweiler pit bull mix. Apartment-wise, I'm also grateful that 5 firemen didn't show up at my door just now and ordered me to evacuate the building because of a gas leak on my floor. I would have had to go outside in what I am wearing, an old chenille bedspread that I've turned into a sarong, and a T-shirt that I think I used as a cleaning rag for a while, and stand around on the sidewalk while Con Ed fixed the problem. And then some street fashion photographer would take my picture and publish it in one of those fashion do's and don'ts columns as the lead don't. And you know what I am so grateful for? that I haven't been purposely tripped by one of those disturbing, mean cartoon characters in Times Square. And then had all the cartoon characters gather around to heckle me while I lay sprawled on the street, my last memory before passing out from pain, being snickered at by a dirty Ernie and a Teletubby. As far as other public humiliations go, I am truly grateful today and every day that I am not an unattractive 8th grader at a snobby private girls' school, whose more popular classmates have decided to practice witchcraft on me by sticking pins into a doll they have given my name, and then tweeted about it. Some of the girls would invariably be the daughters of rich and famous parents, and their tweets and my name would become an item on page 6 of the New York Post, guaranteeing that I would be known forever as the loser who was tormented by amateur Wiccans. Ooh, I think that's about it for this morning's gratitudes. I have totally turned around my outlook on the day, ready to face the endless crap that will come my way, except for my closing gratitude, which I always try to give a not dead theme, to remind myself that just being alive is better than dying, or more certainly dying gruesomely. So today, I am grateful that I am not 3/4 of the way up Mount Everest, with a storm brewing at the peak, and a cocky guide who, in spite of warnings from our Sherpas, has convinced our entire party that we should go for it. Bad idea. I will spend my last moments on Earth stumbling around on my frozen legs through blinding snow until I fall fatally into a chasm. It makes dying at home in diapers sound like, well, okay, not fun, but something to be, in a way, totally grateful for.
It's good when people are crying in the humor tent. I like that.
We don't have time for questions, do we?
Well, we could take one. I think this is the end of the book festival, so we could actually even take a couple and run a few minutes over. And then you have to go sign books because you've all made us want to buy them.
Yes. I'm just curious, what makes you laugh? Or who makes you laugh?
I do love, there's a quote in the beginning here, Sarah loves him too, I think Paul Sims makes me laugh. I opened the book with a quote from him, wonderful writer. Ian Fraser makes me laugh. I love his work. I do love David Sedaris. I love a recent book by Kathleen Shine called Thank you.
They may not mean to, but they do. Okay.
That's a wonderful comic novel. I was talking the other day about Gary Steingart makes me laugh out loud. After I leave here, I'm going to remember 10 more people.
You also seem to love to laugh. You laugh so well.
I do enjoy
You really do seem to
laughing.
love to laugh.
You know, I had to do a talk about laughing, like what makes you laugh. I mean, literally, what about the act of laughter, and all the papers, none of which I read, but I did read the little précis in Wikipedia. The shrinks, the people who research these things, say that people never laugh alone. When there is laughter, the current thinking is that laughter is a purely social communicative thing. Now, I don't know about you, but I do laugh all the time alone, don't you? So I think they're wrong. I do think they're wrong. I think we all don't things strike you as funny when you're by yourself. Yeah, I do enjoy laughing.
I have a question.
Yes,
Do
Abby.
you, like the Elmer Fudd piece, as you're writing that, are you both hearing it and laughing along? I mean, we couldn't stop laughing through that whole piece.
I don't think I'm laughing as
You're not
so
laughing the way
much.
we're laughing. You're
No,
working too hard.
But I do. Yeah, I think it's. We probably the last moment before political correctness kicks in on people who can't pronounce their. I mean, we're just next year. People are going to kill me for that piece. We have about 5 minutes before I'm going to get it. It's the only group I think of that I've offended horribly. I'm so sorry. But I did think, just the words Sarah was saying, the words look funny. The word really, written with
Willy.
all W's,
Yeah.
is just too funny to look at. I did think that.
Okay, one more question.
Claudia.
I think because my dad was very funny. Betsy knew him a little, or he had a reputation for being very funny, and I think he thought I was funny. And I was I was like the, perfect storm of like the kid who has to be funny. I was the baby. I was the third, so not much was expected of me. I think, except to be a clown. See, it different. And he thought I was funny, and that was very important to me because he was funny. And
That would please him.
what?
That would please him.
Yes, it would please him. And although my siblings we all share the same sense of humor, which is his, or that that was very important. But I remember thinking this was a way of being powerful. What's it like having such a funny daughter? She's funny too, right? I just love it. I love it. She's really funny girl, and she writes funny too. I love it. I get great pleasure out of it. And she takes things to a place that I don't. I mean, she takes no prisoners.
Hallie
Hallie Pfeiffer.
is a actress, screenwriter,
Playwright.
She finds things funny that I like. She'll go way out there to dare people to laugh or say, right, Judith? Like, or you don't really know whether you're supposed to laugh or cry. She finds that discomfort, like the most exquisite thing ever, and I often find it uncomfortable. I want people to know. I want them to feel safe laughing, not like, oh, am I laughing, but it's not funny, or I'm not laughing when I should be laughing. She finds that realm of sort of terror or bad taste, or we're talking about rape. Is it funny? Is it not funny? She finds that really exquisite, that intersection, and I just makes me often, don't tell her I said so, extremely uncomfortable.
Okay.
But I'm other people disagree.
Let's let the woman over there ask her question, because you got kind of cut off.
No, don't worry. Sorry about that. I'm wondering, your stories are so funny, but they have this fantastic premise, and I'm wondering if you ever have anxiety about how are you going to end this thing that has the most amazing premise, or do you have the ending in mind when you start, or is it looming over you the way?
I have anxiety about everything. Yes, I have anxiety about that. I have anxiety about beginning it. I have anxiety about. Yes, I have anxiety, but often I think maybe this is magazine writing training.
or tension headache.
Tension headache. I actually don't have tension headaches, but what's the last sentence of a magazine? We used to call it a button. Did they call it a button? Or maybe it's 30 years of writing magazine pieces where they would say, but you need the last thing at the end. A kicker. Thank you.
Yes.
A
Button.
kicker.
Button's interesting.
Button. I don't know where did I get that.
Same place as
A
fertilizer.
kicker. That I can hear. Sometimes I can hear the kicker. But I think that's maybe just from magazine land. And you kind of know when you've gone on long enough.
Must be performing too.
And performing, yes. Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is a wrap, both for the festival and for this session. But there's one other session. It's true in the Menemsha tent about women's reproductive rights issues and people who've written about it. But since you had the pleasure of hearing Jenny Allen's book read here, now you need to go buy it if you don't already own it and have her sign it. So go buy it and have her sign it, and Jenny will be at the author's signing tent. Thank you both so much.